Hello. So this session is about our sponsors, and it's about you asking our sponsors questions and getting answers. Before we do that, I would just invite our sponsors to just introduce yourselves for a minute, roughly a minute. All right, start here.
Is it working? Hi, I'm Ellis Maginn. I head up the technical team for Recoup. Recoup specialise in wastewater heat recovery for showers. It's a heat exchanger technology that essentially takes the heat energy from outgoing shower wastewater, transfers that into incoming cold water and makes it usable. So typically when you shower, 85–90% of the heat energy from the shower head goes down the drain, leaves the building. So it's a big waste of energy. Our products take some of that heat energy, anywhere between sort of typically 50, 60, 70%, and transfer it into the incoming cold feed, getting a preheat uplift essentially from around about 10 degrees typically to about 25, 30 degrees. So we're doing some of the work that the shower and or the hot water plant would do for free. Our main market in the UK currently is new build developers. Developers use us for SAP points for Partel compliance. We're also very active in non-residential buildings, so student accommodation, hotels, anywhere where there's high hot water use, gyms, a good ROI in gyms. But also we have products which are designed more for retrofitting. So different products that will sit, for instance, if you have a shower over bath, a product that will sit underneath the bath. We have shower tray replacement products. And also we have wet room drain products that will work for communal wet rooms and communal showering and things. I guess in terms of case studies, which is a little bit difficult to describe.
Well, we'll come on to that.
Yeah,
we'll
okay, that's fine then. All right, I'll leave it then. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Hi everyone, how are you? Dara McGowan is my name. I'm a director in Partel. We kind of have three parts to the business, essentially, two of which are on show outside there. We have the membrane and tape side of things. We do vapor control layers for all different types of construction, new build, retrofit, timber frame, traditional, anything really, high rise, low rise. We also do breather membranes on the outside, tapes, adhesives, and all that sort of stuff. Then we have our decentralized ventilation systems, which are the Lunas units on display out there. And we also have different variations of structural insulation too.
Andrew Mitchell from 21 Degrees. Many will know us actually as Green Building Store, almost as old as the AECB. In fact, there's people in this room, there's Bill up there, one of the founders, who've been a key part in its development over the years. In last year, we merged with Green Building Renewables under the banner of 21 Degrees, effectively to provide a comprehensive range of both fabric and renewables. So if you want to kind of label it simply Passive House Plus, effectively all the key components that go towards delivering health, comfort and performance other than general insulation, that's pretty much what we do. And whether you're needing a single product solution such as windows and doors, or whether actually you're wanting something that all joins it up, effectively that's where we come in as a supply chain. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm Michael Gration from Five Rise Contractors. We have a commercial side, the boring side that I won't talk about, and then the residential new build side, and we install all the things that these clever people design. So we're a principal contractor primarily, and we do our new builds, retrofit and passive house builds. So yeah, that's what we do.
Good. So keep hold of the microphone. So this is firstly going to be questions from the audience. So we've only got two mics, so I'll be handing out my mic. Have we got any questions? A question over here. That's for you. As you could say here, it's two as well.
Oh, that's a tricky one. I'll let you pick who wants to answer this one, but recently seen on LinkedIn increasing amount of misinformation, but both around how we tackle things like retrofit, but also just people totally misunderstanding the applicability of a building product. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Saw one the other day from a retrofit coordinator advocating passive ventilation, i.e. sort of passive stack ventilation, which isn't even part of the building regs now. And a second one, I think it was, where's Tabitha? Tabitha did a great post about, how we can use posi joists to feed MVHR ductwork, and an HVAC designer had come along and said, why are you using flexi ducting? But it wasn't flexi ducting, it was, it was Zender's, great semi-rigid product that they do. So my question is about how do we tackle that information from people who should be well informed but aren't?
Who would you want to answer first?
Or maybe Andy, if you want to kick off with that. It's about MVHR.
Yeah, semi-rigid, that was one. Okay, bit of an analogy. If you're wanting to figure out the difference between a fake banknote and the true stuff, you don't study all the fake ones, you just study the proper one and really understand what it is. I'd suggest that if we keep doing what we're doing, as in this community here and the other ones that we're involved in, the penny does drop, because you basically, by definition of the fact that you've demonstrated the right solution, which you do in time, unfortunately within the construction industry, it takes some time, but by definition of that, actually people do learn. And I think that's really what we have to do. We've got to continue to champion what is the right solutions. That's a bit of a general overview. I'll get specific if you want, but I won't. Want to answer that?
Okay.
No.
Yeah, any other comments? Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think there's some really clever idiots out there, and mainly on sort of social media and LinkedIn, and it's not to be super derogatory, but I think people are quite quick to comment on social, and I guess this is kind of predominantly where you're looking at in a way. And it's the same with social media, it's the same with things like LinkedIn, it's the same with forums. I think people don't always take the time before they comment to understand a product. And a specific example this week on a LinkedIn post that was from a professor about wastewater heat recovery and generally around efficiencies. And there were people on there that were very, very well qualified that were making comments almost about completely different technologies and not taking the time just to read the post. So I think there's an element of that creeps in sometimes. But obviously, I mean, forums like this are about education. And I think that the more we can educate on our various products, technologies, and also exchange ideas and listen to other areas. And there's been some great talks today, which aren't directly relevant to me, but they're really, really interesting to understand the wider challenges and problems that everybody else has. So I think the more we do this is great. And I think the industry is moving forwards. It's just, I think people are just quick to comment sometimes when just probably another minute or so reading a post might help. So that's an observation.
Just from the supply side or the manufacturing end, I think transparency in limitations in products is important as well. So it's easy to get the marketing team to really push a product to make it look great in every application, but maybe it isn't good for that application. And I think it's starting to change, but I think transparency for manufacturers on, my product is good for this application, but actually maybe it's not good for the application that you need it for. So you're sacrificing kind of, I suppose, the overall attitude towards the industry for a quick sale, and I think we need to kind of move away from that.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, there's some over here. Okay. Oh.
Hello. So I have some concerns about single room heat recovery, the ones that change direction, because they don't always extract moisture from the source. And I just would really like to hear your sort of views on that. Partel, obviously, because you supply, but also 21 degrees, because you supply the full MVHR. So that'd be really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll start and pass it over to you. So for our units, any of the units that are used in wet rooms do extract at source. So we'll say the push-pull system that's used in a wet room has 2 fans, so it's supplying and exhausting at the same time within that room. The bedrooms are different, but your moisture load is obviously not so high. So if it's a wet room, it is extracting at source. If it's just the DCV units, obviously they're extracting as well. They're constantly extracting. So there's 2 fans. I can show it to you on the desk outside. So it is supplying and extracting in that one room.
Cool. For us, jury's out. I don't mean that in any negative way, but primarily because our focus is on full MVHR systems, and there's only so much you can do in the day. We've steered clear of that for now, and really just focused on the whole point about, I mean, it was mentioned in one of the talks earlier about the noise with MVHR. That shouldn't exist. If it's designed properly, it should be almost inaudible. And so we pride ourselves on the fact that you design it right. You provide both a decibel rating as well as a flow rate that should be designed so it's proper low energy. And then you make sure it actually did that at commission so you can actually guarantee that performance. We think that's quite key. We wouldn't dismiss the single units entirely because we just don't know. But so it'd be foolish for us to go down that route.
There was a question over here. Any more? Oh, yes, right here. Hi.
Hiya. So you're quite a lot of suppliers. I wondered, we've had a big increase in construction costs since Brexit and COVID. Do you think that that's closed the gap between more natural products or premium products so that they're becoming sort of comparatively more affordable, or have they just gone up with it at the same rate?
No. Next question. No, I think the gap is closing. We're working hard as buyers to make sure that that's happening. Like we've got the analogy that if you want a photographer for a wedding, it's 20% more than a photographer for anything else. And it's the same if it says passive house on the front of it. Everything costs more. We've even brought a buyer into the company just to make sure that the products that we're getting are coming down in price. It does help when you've got good relations with people on the panel. That does help. We can get products for prices that are more reasonable. And yeah, I have to say yes because your name's up there. But yeah, no, absolutely. But just going back to that, me and Andy had a discussion this morning about quality of a product, and even back to what you mentioned about design this morning, people not wanting to pay for the correct design of something. That's what also causes price to increase, because if we were to get a product not from 21 degrees, a cheaper design, and it's noisy, which you've mentioned, the cost goes up again then because we've got to put it right. And that's what we're also trying to take away as a contractor is the risk, because there's a risk to the contractor. We've got to charge enough to make sure snagging and things can be done. But going back to your question, things are coming down. We are getting them closer to it, but I think we're a while off being parity. I mean, to the point we set up a timber frame company to try and do that, and even we're struggling. So I think possibly answers your question.
Okay, thanks very much. There was another one over here, wasn't there? Oh yeah, over here.
Question again to the, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, gentleman from Five Rise. As contractors, how have you, you're obviously working in the sector that you deliver passive house buildings. Have you ensured that your operatives and supply chain are suitably upskilled and knowledgeable to deliver passive house projects? It's something that, you know, we're coming across now in our line of work.
I'm definitely the right man to answer that. As a former FE teacher, I don't let anyone on the sites. We have lost subcontractors we've maybe used for 10, 15, 20 years that have refused to maybe do passive house training or even some of the AECB training courses. We employed a technical manager, Becky, who got more qualifications than I can care to name, that checks up on site all the time. Our project managers now are trained up. When we started doing our first ones, we didn't let any electricians or plumbers put any holes in anything, anywhere. Well, we didn't let them do it, never mind stood over, and we had to do it. I'll be honest, it's not been as easy as I thought it could have been, because I'm still up against, well, we've always done it like this, so why won't we do it like this again? And I tell this tale all the time. I said, we used to pull teeth out with anaesthetic, but we don't now. So it's been difficult, but now we've got a group of subcontractors that are all trying to go in the same direction. And they're trying to give a product that doesn't just meet it, but it can be a product that's delivered as well as it possibly can be. It does help with technical knowledge from suppliers, and they're also training. I mean, Partel, the amount of people we've sent to try and get Partel to teach how to tape and things like that. Also, what we found is I've had joiners work for me for 20 years, and they're fantastic joiners, but they have no interest in Passive House whatsoever. So we work with a training agent at Kirkstall Forge in Leeds, and they're doing green skills courses, and they may do a month on this course. I know Partel teach on it, Jack, wherever he is, and things like that. And we've moved them onto site, and they've got no baggage from the construction industry. So we're bringing them onto site, and they are by far and away, the 3 people we've got, the best people we have for Passive House. But contractors seeing that, it is dragging them with them. It is changing, but it's just about making sure you select the right contractors. Definitely.
Good, thanks very much. Did we have another question over here? Or any more? Well, oh, yes.
You mentioned weddings and Passive House, which I think is a great analogy. Do you think there's some things that the building industry has stopped doing and therefore paying for, which we should have been doing and therefore paying for, and that Passive House is perhaps dragging it back and sort of pointing out that maybe you should be doing that on that other job?
Yes. I'm trying to think of some examples, but I think the biggest problem we have is training. So the things that we should have been doing years ago are not getting taught. Anything I want teaching to our operatives, I'm having to teach. Not me personally, but the AECB and Forging Futures and Passive House Trust, they're doing it. And other companies around us have the same issues. But until colleges and schools integrate these courses, well, not the courses, it shouldn't be a course. We shouldn't exist to train people it's great that we do, but we shouldn't. I spoke to, I best not say, a college that may be near me, in a room discussing training, and they said it will be 5 years before we get a course anything like the 4-week course that we just strung together, in part using some of the information from Passive House and AECB. But yeah, I think that's the problem. It's old ideas and getting people on board. So it goes back to skills and training for me all the time as a contractor. Don't know if anyone else has got anything to say on that.
Yeah, before my time in Partel, I used to work as a trainer. I used to train people around passive. It works a little bit differently in the Irish market. It was government funded. But we were part of a panel that used to help with apprenticeship upskilling, basically changing the apprenticeship courses so that they'd be more NZ focused, which is what we were looking at the time. And at the end of that consultancy process, the outcome was let them qualify on the old skills and try and get them back into a course afterwards. So it's super hard to change. You're trying to catch them after they've gone through the system. It's a nightmare.
I'll just pass one comment, which is I think it's a much deeper issue, which is just culture. You know, the idea that if you go on the continent, on the mainland, you generally find that engineers, joiners, the trades, their profession is far more respected culturally. But in the UK, it's not. The guys who end up doing the joinery are the dropouts. It's quite perverse. It really is. And I think until we actually start addressing that, we're going to have a challenge. And I think we need to kind of reduce this idea that academia, and I'm well aware that there's a good number in this room who will have come from that background, you know, we're going to have to kind of dial it down a bit, folks. You know, actually, this thing that we're built in, sitting in, doesn't come because we managed to push a pen across a piece of paper. Had a part to play, but not entirely.
Okay, thanks. So we are just about to have lunch. We're going to stop for lunch in a minute. We're slightly over, but just one last question to each of you. Recoup, this question is for you. Our carbon light standards generally require an air source heat pump. Is there a way of using Recoup with that?
Yes, absolutely. So generally, with air source heat pumps, hot water is produced from cylinders. So from our point of view, it's providing preheated water to the cylinder. So the cylinder feed will route through the wastewater heat recovery unit and feed back as preheated water. So that obviously has a benefit of doing some of the work that the water heater will do. So we've got examples where we're installed to air source across a number of new build sites. Also probably about 18 or 20 net zero case studies and trials that are running with major developers currently. And equally with air source heat pump cylinders, it works equally well. Even the Dimplex EDEL that we're breaking down, we've got them working with those previously as well. So yes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Next question is for Partel. You specialize in membranes, tapes and airtightness, but do you have any idea how long they last?
It's a good question, and it comes back to what I mentioned earlier on about transparency. So it's not that easy a question to answer if you want to put an exact amount of years on it, and primarily it depends on the conditions that you install the product in. So we've just started a study. Jack and Dan were over last week looking at the university. We have a PhD student working for 2 years on membrane and tape testing, but they're taking our standard EN tests and the DIN standard and pushing it way beyond the standard process to see, well, where do they fail? You know, we're really putting them into ovens, putting them into humidity chambers, and actually putting them out onto site for testing as well. So we have, I think it's 5 locations right now that have membranes all over the roofs of universities and testing facilities in Canada, 2 in the US, UK, and 2 in Ireland. And we're basically going to take membranes off those samples every 2 weeks for 72 weeks to see, you know, to answer that exact question. How long do they last? But the transparent answer to that is it depends on the conditions.
Oh, but you've been looking into it. That's an amazing thing. Not many
Yeah.
people are doing that.
Yeah, and actually on top of that is they're bloody hard to get your head around the regulations, to be honest. When you start digging into it, there's a lot of terminology and complexity. So we're essentially going to have a case study on every one of the tests. So like a webinar series where you're going to be able to see, well, how do you test a tape adhesive? Like how long does it last? How do you test it? So we're going to make that. There'll be white papers for the academics in the room, but there'll also be kind of easier to follow video content that'll come in the next couple of months.
I very much look forward to seeing it. Yeah, good. Next question is for Andy. Yeah, so you've been around, I mean, Green Building Store, formerly built Green Building Store, been around for a long time. How do you collaborate with others? You must have had a good long time to start thinking about that, how you do that. In particular, you've got, in collaboration, you've got the interface between materials, you've got the way that your MVHR has to fit in with the rest of the design of the building. How do you manage that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So picking up on interface, so to me that's key to good design. It's where one material or product meets another product or material. You think about a window, you can have a great performance window, but actually if the interface between the actual window frame and the building is poor, you're kind of wasting your money and energy, literally. But then beyond that, it's actually the relationship with the people that you're collaborating with in the project. So for us, it's how we work with the individuals to provide a service as well as a supply product chain, as well as an installation solution that basically meets their needs and solves their problem. So I would argue it's almost like a design exercise, really, in the same way that an architect might design a building. There's a role that we play in that process.
Great, good. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. And a similar question for you in Five Rise. What's your experience in collaboration? Have you collaborated on projects, or what did you learn from that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll get anywhere without any sort of collaboration. I mean, I don't think Recoup know it, but we've collaborated with everybody on the panel. Our latest retrofit, we worked with, I don't think Partel were on it, but that's the architect's fault, not mine. Just so you know, we still buy from you. So yeah, we retrofit version for both showers in it, 21 degrees. I know I'm sat next to him, but without 21 degrees, his knowledge for the windows and how they've took us through the journey on MVHR and how it works, we'd still be knocking building regulation houses up, I'll be honest. that education for us has been key. So the collaboration is absolutely key. And Partel, I mentioned before that we've set up the timber frame company. I am a visionary. I am not. Please don't take offence to any of this. I am not a nerd. That is not what I do. I brought Tony in as my nerd on the end here to set up the timber frame company, but without Partel's nerds, that wouldn't have worked either. So collaboration is absolutely key. And what I will say, going back to the question you asked at the top, what has changed in the passive world and AECB world that hasn't in other building is we talk, and more people are actually collaborating rather than, if I was working with another builder, I wouldn't usually be telling them anything I were doing. I didn't want them to learn anything that I knew. And that is exactly the opposite to what is happening and what should happen in passive, that everyone should share a bit. I think the lady's just gone who did the presentation before about, that's why they did the white papers and things like that for people to learn from. We must keep doing that. And that's key to collaboration.
I thought it would be interesting to talk to your colleague as well.
More interesting than me.
On the topic of collaboration, I think, like Mike said, I'm Tony, MD of Timbercraft Structures. So we are a business in its own entirety, but we sit directly into Five Rise. So Five Rise is a principal contractor. We as a off-site timber frame manufacturing company. So we are a startup in essence, but under the umbrella as a principal contractor. So that it remains the fact it doesn't work without collaboration. So Partel, 21 degrees, Jack especially, being local to us up in Keighley, West Yorkshire. The knowledge, without buying a product from these people, the knowledge that comes in about product performance, how you can do things, tear resistance, whatever it might be, you just don't know it because you're so busy doing the manufacturing, making sure the quality assurance works, and you're building a product to a specification. You need this interjection, you need this information from others. And I think one thing that's key, we are not a high volume manufacturer. We want to be in a position where we can build frames within the guidance, so SDA, for example, but to the clients and the architect's requirements. And that's difficult because, like most things in this world, you can only leverage if you buy in volume. So screws, nails, whatever you're buying, if you buy lots of them, you can get better price points. So we are not in that world. So we have to be careful with our supply chain to make sure that we can buy the right product to the right classification, but without eroding margin. So it's a fine balance, but being part of Five Rise as a team, we've got the added benefit of communication. So we are a supplier, but with a special relationship. So I can say to Mike, I'm really building the frames for Monday because is the slab ready, for example. Whereas that's more difficult if you are supplying to a third party and you're not part. So communication and collaboration is key. Can I get these membranes? Is it a 4-week lead time or is it 2-week lead time? You have to know all this information, and Partel 21 degrees, it works for us. Thank you.
Great. Well, if you could give everyone a round of applause, please. Thank you very much for our sponsors.